Welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and today we are live. As always with our live broadcast, if you would like to comment or participate in the broadcast, we'd love to have you participate. Feel free to comment and we can bring your comment into the show just like this, or we can you can ask your question and we'd be happy to try to answer it to the best of our ability. Today, we're going to talk about a really great product that I'm excited to introduce the audience to. This is something that really saves people money. If you live in a colder climate like I do, you have to have a block heater on your vehicle. And it's just something that is absolutely necessary, especially through those real cold months in the winter. Of course, it takes electricity to power those block heaters. And this great product we're going to introduce you to actually saves electricity, saves power consumption, which saves you money. And this has a real great application for a lot of different commercial fleets. So I'd like to introduce you to my guests. First of all, we bring in Kurt. Kurt, welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Glad to have you here.
Good morning, Jamie. How you doing?
I'm good. And then we also have Sonny. Sonny, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Jamie. Glad to be here.
So I'd like to kind of start the conversation off to talk about how much money fleets actually are spending on powering block heaters. Kurt, maybe you could help us answer that question.
Yeah, sure. Before we get into the cost, let me give you kind of a easy visual example to help people understand what the cost of block heaters is so expensive. Block heaters can range anywhere from 750 to 1500 watts. And if you think of it from a residential standpoint, it would be like having 15 100-watt light bulbs turned on and left on in your house for 20 hours a day. I don't think most of us do that, and especially for 6 months out of the year during the heating season. So it gets kind of expensive really quick if you understand what I'm saying. So, what most people wouldn't do that. So let your fleet vehicles go on, and we have a way to control it. So why wouldn't you do it? And that's kind of what we're doing. And that's where some of the savings is. Most people don't realize the savings there.
Right. And this is something that can actually get up into the thousands of dollars. Like, we're not talking just a small amount. This is a significant opportunity to put money to the bottom line. And whether it's a municipal fleet, a school bus fleet, or a commercial fleet, I mean, they still all have fiscal responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. For example, if you had a fleet of vehicles, let's say 60 vehicles, and which is pretty common, you could range anywhere in your spending from $14,000 to $21,000 annually, depending on where you are geographically. If you're in the upper Midwest or upper Northeast, you're going to be in the 19 cents a kilowatt hour for your electrical spend. If you're in the Midwest or somewhere like that, you're going to be in the 8 cents to 10 cents per kilowatt hour, or 12 cents, just depends. So annually, a fleet of 60 buses or 60 vehicles would spend $14,000 to $21,000 on their electrical spend to heat those blocks, which equates to about anywhere from $216 to $350 per vehicle. Now, that may not sound like a lot, per vehicle, but when you take that times the 60 or times the 40 or times whatever number of vehicles you have, it adds up really, really quick.
Yeah, so, and it's an annual expense. It recurs every year, so it's not like it goes away.
Yeah,
Sonny, I'd love to. Sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
Oh no, I was just going to say most vehicles, like, they set for 20 hours a day. Well, school fleets set for 20 hours a day, and we call that soak time. So we control that, and when they don't need to be heating, so it's pretty efficient, very efficient, actually.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to talk more about this total solution. But before we do that, Sonny, I'd love to hear the story of how this company got started. So first of all, what's the company name and how did you get your start?
Yeah, the company name is Power Grid Energy Solutions. And kind of how we got started is back in 2008 when the economy crashed back then. A lot of businesses, schools, and things were actually having issues looking for ways to save on their utilities, and so forth. I was in the energy conservation field at that time, so I started offering free kind of simple audits for businesses locally around me and some of the schools. Schools particularly really got an interest in needing some help. I went to a local school, and one of the areas that was identified as an issue from electrical standpoint was they had buses plugged in. I think they had 19 buses at the time. And they said, hey, can you help us find a solution to reduce this cost? So I immediately started looking for technologies that was out there that would help them. And really the only thing I could find was just like general, just standard, like a timer. So each truck would have to have a timer. So during my research, I realized there was no technologies available. So I basically set off, designed a panel that would control the whole fleet at once. I built in schedules. I had it look at outside temperature set points and developed basically a program that had algorithms in it that would look at the outside temperature, decide when was the right time to basically activate their block heaters. Once I did that and got us what I thought was a decent solution, I took it back to the school. We installed it within the first full month of them running the panel. They took their utilities at their bus garage down 75% immediately.
Wow.
So based on that, kind of make a long story short, I developed this panel that controls up to, one single panel will control a whole fleet of up to 42 vehicles. Once I realized that, I had something that wasn't out there, I patented the product. And since that time, like I said, we're the only block heater controller solution on the market that we know of that controls up to 42 vehicles. And we've actually had customers now that have achieved up to 94% reduction in their electrical usage by using our panel.
That's awesome. Yeah. And when I think about the available solutions outside of yours, like you talk about the timer, and the big problem with that is it comes on at a specific time, it shuts off at a specific time, but it, like you said, it has no outside kind of influence on like what the temperature is. So there's no way to put that information into the timer and say, well, It's colder, longer today, so we need more power, and it's warmer more often, over the next couple days, so we need less power. There's no way to regulate that. It's just on, off, on, off. So I can see how there was an opportunity to create something that would produce more efficiency, and that's really at the end of the day what this product has done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So, Kurt, we talked a little bit about how much fleets are spending. Sonny alluded to the large percentage of power consumption that can be reduced.
Right.
But what does that translate into real dollars and cents? I think that's important for people to understand.
Well, give an example. We did a school system here in Indianapolis back in 2019, and they had 186 buses, and we estimated their savings based on our calculations for a season to be $35,000 in savings. By the end of that season, from November through March, we ended up saving them over $42,000. So we far and exceeded that, and they couldn't have been happier. So the other thing that we didn't anticipate was another additional savings to that was block heaters. The mechanic there, the head maintenance guy, told us that the year prior he had to replace 60 block heaters, and that was at a cost of about $125 to $150 to replace each one, including labor. So that can vary as well depending on your labor rate. So there was another $7,000 additional savings because the year that our block heater controller panel was in, they only had to replace 3 block heaters, and he didn't know if that was residual leftover from prior to that. So that was awesome.
So is that because now because of the efficiency gains, the block heater doesn't have to work so hard, so then it doesn't wear out as quickly? Is that kind of the thought process behind that?
You're exactly right. It does not, they're not utilizing it. So like I said, if the 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever time that we have it set for comes on and the temperature is above our set point, it won't activate the block heater, so it's not running it. So it doesn't have that on-off cycle going on throughout the day. And we reduce that quite a bit. People would be very surprised at how many days that actually they don't turn on at all.
Right. Okay, so obviously now you've Sonny, you've talked about how you can go up to like 42 vehicles with this one panel. I'm
Right.
kind of curious, like how is it installed? How is the panel itself powered? Because obviously this is, what I normally see is I see all these posts in a
Yeah.
parking lot, and you bring in your vehicle, you park in your spot, you plug it in. That's your plug
Right.
in. And now you're talking about bringing 42 vehicles together in one panel. So I'd love to see how that works.
Yeah. Well, it's for a quick visual. Think about your breaker panel in your house. That breaker panel has a breaker. There's an electrical circuit that goes out to your plugs on the wall. Same thing with block heater circuits. They're typically a 20 amp circuit that goes from the breaker and goes out to that plug at the post for the vehicle. What we do is we intercept that circuit that's going out there. Some of them are indoors, some of them are outdoors. But what we do is we put our panel between the breaker panel and those receptacles where it makes sense. And at that point is we intercept that circuit, and then that's how we control it. We got a temperature probe. If the panel is installed indoors, the temperature probe goes to the closest outside wall. That's where we get our reading for outdoor temperatures. And then the rest is basically controlled between those 2 points. So any basically qualified electrician can install like a 42 truck panel in just a few hours. So they're pretty straightforward. They're pretty easy to install. Like I said, they can go indoors, they can go outdoors. It doesn't matter. The panels will work either way. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy, and it saves a lot of money. And not only that is you'll see not only energy savings, but from an environmental standpoint, you're going to reduce your carbon footprint as well.
Yeah, another added bonus. Yeah, I was curious about that. So if someone buys it, you ship it to them, there's instructions, and a qualified electrician can be brought in, and they can just follow the instructions and install it themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm kind of curious. There's a lot of different applications that this product could be good for, but what are the best applications that you found for PowerSync?
Anybody that has a fleet of vehicles with 20 or more, we can get down to as low as 12 vehicles and do a cost justification of 24 months or less typically. But anybody with a 20 vehicle or more with a diesel engine that they plug in either day or night would be a candidate. Some of those guys would be LTL carriers, where their day cabs go out and they come back in. They sit in a lot during the day. They sit in a lot during the night. No reason to heat those block heaters, but we can control those. Route trucks, delivery trucks that are delivering your bread, delivering your stuff to the grocery stores. Those are another good candidates because they plug their trucks in every night. Buses, concrete fleets, waste management, people, trash trucks. They're all plugging in because they've got to be on site the next morning. What people don't realize as well is when you have a bus or truck or trash or whatever vehicle that doesn't start in the morning, well, that creates a whole snowball effect of additional things that we didn't even talk about. And they have to either reschedule another truck, pull another truck from a different lot, or they have to pay overtime for their drivers or their operators to get their products delivered or get it to the site. So it's a snowball. Again, people don't think about those things, and it adds up.
Yeah, downtime, unscheduled downtime is just a killer for most fleets. Another area that I was thinking in places where they're working night shifts, sometimes in the spring, for example, in our area, as things start to warm, it's still cold, but as things start to warm, they put road bans on. And so then you can't run like a fully loaded truck on the gravel roads to get out to, let's say, like an oil field site during the day. So then they switch and they work at nighttime, but it can still be minus Celsius, minus 15 in the daytime, minus 20. You still would need to plug that vehicle in during the day. So night or day, depending on the outside temperature and depending on when the vehicle's working, you still have to have that vehicle plugged in. So that's another place where this would be a great product.
Right.
That's correct.
Sonny.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead,
one
Sonny.
thing to think about too, and what makes our panel so unique is you have the ability to control it remotely. So if you
Yeah.
have to change a schedule, it's easily done through a desktop computer. You can do it from your phone if you've got access to your network. We've actually got the panel set up now that it uses BACnet over IP, which it can be on a building management system. So you can do a lot of things with it and get access to it from no matter where you're at. So if you've got somebody that's responsible for the fleet, they need to change a schedule, whatever, it works very well. And we also use what's called a zone feature. So if you had 20 vehicles, we can make four sets of 5 trucks all have different schedules. So you can actually schedule your fleet. So if you have different start times or whatever, you have the ability to do that as well, which actually also increases your savings. Instead of turning them all on at one time, you can stage them on. So we have that
Right.
ability to do that as well.
That makes a lot of sense for vocational fleets because, like, let's say that you have, if you're oil field, for example, maybe you've got some water well drilling trucks because you do water wells, and then you also have some tank trucks because you're hauling
Yep.
fluid, and you've
Yes.
got some other work trucks, and then you've also got medium duty diesel pickup trucks that need to be all plugged in. So you might have several different types of trucks all doing different jobs, working at different times. So to be able to program that by the group of trucks or the shift that those people and those trucks are working, man, that's a lot of flexibility. That works really well.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of talk about one thing, because like when I think of block heaters, and actually when I first heard about your product for the first time, we were in the middle of a really, really bad cold snap here in northern Alberta. And, we got to minus 50 with the wind chill one day, and people always say, was that Celsius or Fahrenheit? And we say at minus 50, it doesn't matter. But when I heard about the product, I thought, wow, so in this cold snap, that is when this product is just perfect. But when I was talking to you guys getting ready for this interview, you kind of mentioned that there's actually different times throughout the year where your product saves the most, and it's a little counterintuitive. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Okay. It's kind of a 2-part answer to that. And a lot of people think, well, the colder it is, the better, the more savings you get. Well, it's actually,
that's what I thought.
It's actually kind of opposite of that. And it's no matter what, it saves every month for the whole 6-7 months, whatever your winter season is.
Right. 6 months in the States and 9 months in Canada.
Yeah. So you're 9 months. So as you're coming into the coldest period of the time, you're going to have days that may not necessarily need block heating the whole amount of time, but you still plug them in to be ready. So you would be using power that whole time. So the way the panel works is now that it's warmer, you'll have those basically during the times of the day where it's warmer, the panel will be shut down. It'll have everything shut down. And as the temperatures get colder, then that's when it would activate. So at the beginning of the season, the end of the season, typically is where this really saves the most money. So like you talked about timers are just, it's shut off a certain amount of time during the day. Our panel does that, but it also looks at outside temperature. So for instance, if your panel's set for 26 degrees outside, let's say that's when you're going to you want it to activate. So when your schedule plays out, your schedule's complete, it says, okay, I'm ready to heat. Well, it starts looking at outside temperature at that point. It says, well, it's 28 degrees. It's been there for a while. I'm going to go ahead and just leave them off. You don't need them. So that's kind of what people think. It's not necessarily how cold it is, but it's at the beginning and the end of the seasons where this thing really shines.
I get it. I get it, because at the beginning and the end of the season, you just have it plugged in and you're running power for no good reason. Whereas when it's at the coldest point, you have to run it no matter what. So Power Sync's not going to shut it off because it's so cold. But in the beginning and end, that's where the waste is, and that's where you recoup the most money. I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have taken me that long to figure it out.
Well, and it also seems like our winters are becoming more and more mild. So the more mild the winter is, the more we save. It just tons.
Yeah.
And I talk about that cold snap in February, but honestly, this year we had a very mild winter. We really only had about 3 weeks of really, really cold weather. The rest of the time, I was able to, go for my evening walk and basically just a hoodie and a light jacket, which is almost unheard of for this part of the world.
Yeah.
Right. So, like I said, that's really when this thing saves. The kind of second part of it is just the controls algorithms that we use, the zone features. We give the customer the ability to decide how many hours prior to needing the vehicle that they want to activate the block heater. We worked with block heater manufacturers, and they basically told us 2 to 3 hours that engine's going to get as hot as it's going to get. So we've got a lot of really cool features built into the panel to give the customer the flexibility to configure how this block heater controller works that best fits their needs. So it's all built in. It makes it. We typically are pretty. Our savings usually is pretty conservative, and we've not missed one yet. We've always beat what we say. So it just does what it says it's going to do, and then some. So.
Sonny, I'd like to add too, or Jamie, another thing is most power companies recognize our panel as a custom rebate and a custom incentive. So the local power companies, depending on where you're located, will offer incentive so that you're not using as much power, and you kind of take some of the load off of their power grid, off their grid system. And this one example I gave you earlier about the 186 buses, they received a $23,000 incentive. That's pretty solid.
Yeah. Put 23 grand in my pocket. I'd be happy.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah.
But that project paid back in less than 6 months. So with their incentives, so it was a great deal for them. And we're working with them again in a new facility, and they're going to get, since they're putting in brand new panels to the new facility, they get that rebate again. So it's a great product. It does what it says it's going to do. It saves a lot of money.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, the Heavy Duty Parts Report is dedicated to parts and tools for commercial vehicles. But guys, the minute you make one for light duty, I'll be buying 3 for our vehicles. So
that might be on the horizon, just so you know. So
yeah, I kind of figured it probably was.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving us an overview of PowerSync and the impact it can have. I really appreciate that. And we're just going to take a minute here to share with people how that they can learn more. And we just appreciate that you came on the show today. So Sonny, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Jamie. Thanks for having us.
Kurt, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, appreciate it. Had a great time. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good, gentlemen. Thank you. My name is Jamie Irvin. I'm the host of the Heavy Duty Parts Report, and we've been talking about PowerSync. What a great product to save people money on their power consumption for block heaters, save them on actually having to replace block heaters. Just a great product, a great company. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to power-sync.com, and links are in the show notes, but that's power-sync.com. And you can learn more about the product and learn about how you can take advantage of those great savings going into next winter. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we're going to talk about how we put together a marketing video for a heavy duty parts company. I'm going to bring my producer back on, Taryn. You got to meet him a couple weeks ago, and we're going to talk about that. So I'm excited to share that information with you. And it was great to be able to talk to the guys about PowerSync today. Thank you for tuning in. And just before I go out, I've got a comment here from Steve Hoke. Thanks for supporting the show, Steve. He really appreciated the content today, as I'm sure you did as well. So thank you for tuning in, and have a great weekend.